Hi everyone, I am Marta Rizzonelli and I will add on what my colleagues Pascal Staudt and Marcello Lussana have already explained and clarify the relationship between our system Sentire and sociality. As you have already heard, the main hypothesis of our research project is that Sentire fosters social interaction. The first evidence that led us to formulate this hypothesis was based on 18 informal interviews where 78% of participants claimed that, while using Sentire to interact with another person, they felt increased empathy or connection to their partners. Since sociality is a very broad concept, we needed to narrow it down and understand what forms of sociality are facilitated by Sentire. To do so, we started from the model of social ontology developed by Kim et al. 2019, which comprehends all forms of social interaction, including those largely non-verbal ones that do not necessarily require social cognition and intention. These forms, defined as basic social behaviors, are central for the study of Sentire since they play an important role in musical interaction and in other forms of non-verbal interaction that do not aim to communicate representational meanings. Musical sound can promote basic social behaviors in the sense of communicative musicality, forms of vitality, musical empathic creativity, and intersubjectivity. The concept of communicative musicality, developed by Malloch and Treverton in 2009, represents the basis on which pre-linguistic interactions using sounds and gestures develop, and from which coordination emerges. Forms of vitality are, according to Stern 2010, physical actions and mental processes that are shaped in relation to others and allow for their experience of vitality. In the musical domain, forms of vitality emerge thanks to music's structural features and the co-shaping processes that are triggered both by music making and by music listening, and afford a sense of mutual affiliation and coordination. Coordination includes synchronization entrainment related to movements, tempo, and metrical structure, see Clayton et al. 2019, as well as processes relevant to joint action, see Keller, November, and Hove 2014, that can be subsumed under the concept of attunement. Musical empathic creativity, described by Cross et al. 2012, indicates the mutual affective alignment that arises during the creative process of making music together, be it in the traditional sense of playing instruments together, or in the more modern fashion afforded by an interactive music system such as Sentire. Moreover, musical interaction exhibits various salient features that may give rise to empathic creativity in cooperative musical contexts: imitation, synchronization entrainment, disinterested pleasure, flexibility, ambiguity, and shared intentionality. For a more detailed description, see Cross et al. 2012. In the field of dance improvisation, Samaritan Payne 2013 developed the idea that sound fosters not only the perception of one's own movement, but also intersubjectivity, i.e., the engagement of a subject in relation to others. Several studies show that musical sound can be a valuable tool to facilitate pro-social behavior. It has positive forms of sociality like helping or supporting attitudes. For example, long-term musical group interaction has a positive influence on empathy in children. Rabinovich, Cross, and Bernhardt, 2012. Synchronization entrainment, as performed in a musical tapping task, has a positive effect on affiliation and helpfulness. Stupacher, Wood, and Witte, 2017. Joint music making among 4-year-old children increases subsequent spontaneous cooperative and helpful behavior. Kirchner and Tomasello, 2010. And a pilot study suggests that music therapy can help aggressive adolescent boys to interact more appropriately with their peers. Rickson and Watkins, 2003. On these grounds, we propose that basic social behaviors facilitated by real-time auditory feedback can support sociality and prosociality and therefore play a relevant role in societal health, both in therapeutic and in more general well-being related applications. On the empirical level, we were able to prove how Sentire indeed facilitates behaviors that are genuinely interpersonal social. We describe our empirical study in a paper that has recently been submitted for review, Rizzonelli et al. 2022. Although interacting couples using Sentire are neither assigned a specific task nor find themselves in a situation where one interactant could need the other's help, we could clearly observe that Sentire has a general facilitating effect on interactive behaviors. Using the method of structured observation, we detected the occurrence of behaviors that were both synchronous and matched, which we called behaviorally matched synchrony, BMS. In a sample of 20 interaction sessions with an overall duration of 160 minutes, we detected BMS for both arms, 14%, and whole body movements, 58%. However, since BMS includes synchrony due to chance and is not per se an indicator of social behavior, we used the method of causality analysis to prove that most BMS events that we had identified were related by interpersonal causality. It is, one interactant's action caused the others. We call these events imitative synchrony, IS, and consider them as strong evidence of the fact that most behaviors supported by Sentire are genuinely interpersonal social, rather than, for example, elicited by the interaction with the environment or due to chance. On this basis, we assume that Sentire could help promote pro-social interactive behaviors too. Altogether, both the theoretical background and the empirical findings just described support the hypothesis that Sentire facilitates sociality, or more precisely, basic social behaviors. The strong link between Sentire and sociality makes it an appropriate tool to support social interaction and motivates us to further investigate its possible applications in therapeutic and non-therapeutic contexts. And it is precisely to this end that the automatic classification and consequent sonification of interactive gestures described in the video that you saw at the beginning of this presentation was developed. Here you can find the references mentioned in this presentation. My colleagues and I thank you for your attention and look forward to your questions.